I've never in my life fought for anything. I'm the sort of person that go into a dreadful restaurant and never complain, and put up with the most dreadful things, and I would never complain. I'd never complained about anything in my life before. I just kind of just got on with things. But what I saw in Izzard House was so bad that even now it affects me to speak of the things that I've seen. After a few months working there, a team leader came on to another unit, and then I started to see things that were so wrong. When I think back, it was the most dreadful situation to be in, because this woman who was abusing the residents, her best friend was the deputy manager of the home. Maria Keenahan was the unit leader that I saw abusing residents. She used to withhold people's painkillers because they'd be screaming in pain, and she'd withhold the painkillers deliberately. She left people in bed for up to 18 hours at a time, and the smell on the unit when you walk down there, it wasn't just of neglect, it was rotten flesh. It was people, their skin was breaking down, and they were just totally neglected. And it was dreadful, because there were people that I cared about and I'd looked after for several years, and they were like friends to me. There was a lady there called Edna, and I was very fond of her because she had no family, and she'd been in a mental institution since she was about 14, and she'd been sexually abused, and she'd had a dreadful life. And when she first came to Izzard House, she was just so grateful to have her own room, and she was given 180 mils of chlorpromazine 3 times a day. She was unconscious. She'd have her face in a plate of cornflakes, and she'd just leave her there. Or Maria Keenahan used to lift her head up by her hair and just pour more chlorpromazine down her throat. Chlorpromazine in liquid form can cause the skin to become red raw, burnt actually. And the last time I saw Edna, her mouth, her tongue was all swollen, and her face was covered in scabs from where chlorpromazine had run back down her face, because nobody was giving her food or drink, and the only effort that was made was to get chlorpromazine, an antipsychotic drug, into her. Maria Keenahan used to stockpile the drugs and give these drugs out as punishment. Carol Jones was the manager of the home. I went to her. I knew I was taking a risk, and I told her what was happening. She said to me, "Don't speak to anyone else. We need to collect evidence. You don't want these people to go and work somewhere else, do you?" And I believed her. So every time I saw something, I was reporting it to her. If it was a medication type of abuse, I was showing her where the medication had been given or was being stored, stockpiled, I should say. So that was kind of going on, and it was hard waiting for the management to act, but I trusted the management, and if I hadn't trusted the management, people wouldn't be dead. And I, to this day, maintain that people died in there that needlessly, that should not have died if people had done the right thing and done something about it. Then one day this young carer came to me and said that he was seeing abuse, and I just felt, oh thank God, I'm not alone anymore, you must go to the manager. And he said he had been, and he just found out that there were 7 of us and all that were going to the management and had been for several months. I knew there and then that I had to go outside, and I also knew there and then that if I went outside they'd know it was me. I called all the staff on my unit at lunchtime and said, can everyone come down and speak to me? And I said to them all, I'm going to social services on Monday morning, which is my day off. I don't blame you if you don't want to give me a statement, but if you do, I'll take it with me. But we have to go outside because they're just going to cover it up in here. And every one of them said they'd give a statement. Now, the youngest one was 17, and I kind of thought, my God, at 17, would I have been able to do that? I was very lucky to work with such honourable people and brave people. I think as well that the subsequent treatment that we endured, God, I'm getting upset, sorry. It was dreadful. I just never in a million years. I thought that the company I worked for, BUPA, never occurred to me that people at the very top would excuse what we were seeing and try to cover it up. And the only thing they cared about was their reputation. It never occurred to me that anything mattered more than the residents and what happened to them. And it just didn't occur to me that we would be met with this hatred. The staff were told that they were all going to lose their jobs because of us, because we'd gone outside to social services. We were spat at, we were threatened. The food wasn't brought down to the unit for our residents. Dirty laundry wasn't taken. We turned up at 7 o'clock in the morning for our early shift and been told to come back at 9 o'clock at night. We weren't paid our wages. It's not illegal because they give you £8 and then say next month we'll make it up. But and that's not illegal apparently. But how can you live on £8? It was just dreadful. I dreaded going into work, and you come out, you'd finish your shift, and then you had to go back in. We were basically punished every day until we could take no more. The final straw came when one of my residents on the unit, Mary, she wasn't well, and I rang a GP. I rang the office and said, can you get the GP to come out? That was the procedure. Her daughter was there at the time, so she heard me, and I went off shift. That was at 2 o'clock. When I came back the next day, I found out the GP had been cancelled by the home's management, and Mary died. And I thought, oh my God, I can't. We were trying to save the residents, not have any more harm come to them. And they were using the residents to get to us because they knew we cared about them. Social services actually set up a meeting which they attended, and we met with the director, Des Kelly. Afterwards, we later learned that he said that he couldn't recall what we told him, none of it. He couldn't recall any of the abuse, and he couldn't recall any of the harassment of the whistleblowers. In fact, he couldn't recall anything. Social services upheld all the allegations, though BUPA told everybody that none of them were upheld. We used to constantly have to send copies of the report, which upheld everything. They gave them a list of things that they had to put right. They said Maria Keenahan, for example, was not to work in any care home. we, the whistleblowers, found out that she was working in a care home down the road. They hid them against the recommendations of social services in other care homes. The man responsible for that directly is Des Kelly. That man is now a government advisor on elderly care. It's absolutely disgusting that people that are implicated in abuse, the way that man is, can be at such a level that he's listed in the top 10 most powerful people in social care. He's been given a CBE for services to the care industry, and he was voted Care Personality of the Year in 2007.
Can you tell us about how the law stands in relation to whistleblowers and whether it protected you or not?
The law is worth nothing. It amounts to policies and procedures. I mean, policies and procedures are all very well if you want to stuff them down the back of your jumper in case you get hit by a chair, but other than that, they're just bits of paper. You cannot enforce a law with an employer unless you do it by case law. It's like saying, oh, murder's illegal, but if you commit it, nothing will happen to you. Obviously, people wouldn't take any notice of it unless the law was enforced. The Public Interest Disclosure Act was worth nothing to us. In fact, it was worse than no law at all because it gave people false hope. The solicitor rang me and said that if I would settle, the others would follow, because I was the team leader and, you know, I suppose, I don't know, they saw me as a bit of the ringleader, I think they called me at one point. And she said, BUPA, we're going to give her £70,000 if she could get me to settle. And then she said to me, Eileen, you can go on holiday, you can have nice shoes, you can buy things. And I just said, well, where can you go in the world where you don't have to look into your own eyes when you have a mirror in front of you? I said, it's not about money. And she kept on and on and on. And in the end, I said, I want you to write this down because I'm instructing you to write this down. You can tell BUPA they don't have enough money to keep me quiet and they can stuff it where the sun don't shine. And that was my official response because it just, it wasn't about money. It was never about money. It was for Edna and Grace and Reg and all the other people that they, you know, suffered. And it couldn't be for nothing. It couldn't be for nothing. They had to be held to account. And the more they tried to cover it up, the more determined we became to make sure that it wasn't covered up, because those people, their lives were gone. And, you know, they died in dreadful circumstances. And it wasn't just like we've reported faulty machinery, and not that I'm saying that's any less important, but they were human beings and it was about their suffering, and BUPA thought that you could put a price on that. There was no money that they could ever give us to keep us quiet. What happened was I took a huge A4 bundle of all the marsh sheets and full statements down to Bromley Police Station. I presumed that they would go in and question all the, you know, the suspects and look at all of the medical evidence because it was all there, everything was there. Nothing happened and I couldn't understand this. And then I did a Freedom of Information request about a year later. 13 minutes from when we handed over all of that evidence to when they closed the case. And they made 2 phone calls, both to their press office. There were no inquests into the death of those in Izzard House, mainly because they were old. When elderly people die, nobody asks questions. It's expected. In other words, it's never suspected, it's expected. All of the other charities in elderly care, they are all funded by the care industry. I wrote into our constitution that we can't take money from the care industry or from any government source. We just take public money. The first money that came in was 50p for a pensioner in a card, which I framed, and it said, what you did for those people in Izzard House, you did for me. And that's something that I treasure. Life always comes down to sitting down crying or standing up fighting. It's always going to come down to that. So you might as well stand up fighting. I have sat down and cried at times, but not for long. You always have to get up and carry on, because at the end of the day, you know, I know that my knowledge and bearing testimony for those people I saw suffer can help others. And if I can save one life, then it's all worth it. Can I just say one other thing? People don't realise how important whistleblowing is. You know, if you use a loved one on a train that's crashed and find out that crash might have been avoided if whistleblowers had been protected or been able to speak out, how would that make you feel? Everyone in the country could be in a position where they could lose a loved one in a similar situation. Whistleblowing is really, really important. It's not tale telling. Whistleblowers are trying to save lives.